What's up, guys? Welcome back to Horror Stories. In today's video, you'll hear some truly terrifying real-life encounters. Stories that real people have actually experienced and lived to tell. So make sure you stick around till the end, because every single story here is absolutely worth listening to. Before we begin, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps the channel grow, and I appreciate it more than you know. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. My name is Garrett, and I'm a data analyst living in a converted textile mill in Lowell, Massachusetts. I moved into Unit 304 last September. Affordable rent, exposed brick, the kind of place that looks great on Instagram. I lived alone, worked from home 3 days a week, and mostly kept to myself. The apartment directly above me, 404, had been empty since I moved in. The landlord mentioned something about renovations, but I never saw anyone working up there. I didn't care. The silence was perfect. That changed on a Tuesday in late October. I was finishing up a report around 11 p.m. when I heard it. Footsteps. Not loud, but deliberate. Heel toe, crossing the room above me in a slow, measured pace. I glanced at my ceiling and waited. The steps continued, traced the same path, then stopped directly above my desk. I texted my landlord. "Someone moving into 404? His response came 5 minutes later. "No, still vacant." Why? I stared at that message longer than I should have. Then I heard the steps again. Same route, same rhythm. I convinced myself it was pipes or the building settling. Old mill buildings make noise. I went to bed. The next night, the walking started at 11 p.m. exactly. Same pattern. I timed it. 6 steps forward, pause, 6 steps back. Over and over for 20 minutes, then silence. I called the landlord the next morning, told him someone was definitely up there. He seemed annoyed but agreed to check. He called me back an hour later. "I went up there, Garrett. Doors still padlocked from the outside. No one's been in that unit for 8 months. The dust on the floor is undisturbed." "That's impossible," I said. "I hear someone walking every night." "Maybe it's coming from a different unit," he suggested. "Sound travels weird in these old buildings." But I knew what I heard, and I knew it came from directly above me. That night, I recorded it. I set my phone on the coffee table, hit record, and waited. At 11 p.m., the footsteps began. I stood on my couch, pressing my ear to the ceiling and listened. 6 steps forward, pause, 6 steps back. The ceiling was cold against my skin, and I swear I could feel vibrations with each step. I played the recording back. It captured everything. The distinct sound of footsteps on hardwood, the pauses, even a faint creaking sound I hadn't noticed in real time. I sent the audio file to my landlord with a message. "This is from 404, tonight. Explain this." He never responded. The pattern continued for a week. Every night at 11 p.m., I started dreading it, watching the clock, my stomach tightening as the hour approached. I'd sit in the dark, listening, trying to convince myself there was a logical explanation. On the 8th night, the footsteps stopped in a different spot, right above my bedroom. Then I heard something new, a dragging sound, like furniture being moved. Slow, scraping across the floor. It lasted maybe 30 seconds, then stopped. My heart was hammering. I grabbed my phone and pulled up a neighbor's number. Someone, anyone. But I didn't call. What would I say? The dragging sound came again. Then a thump. Not loud, heavy, like something falling over. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room with every light on, staring at the ceiling, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. At dawn, I made a decision. I had to see inside that apartment. I found the landlord's master key code taped inside the fuse box. A note he'd left when I moved in. In case of emergency. This qualified. I went upstairs at noon when the sunlight poured through the hallway windows. The padlock on 404's door was coated in rust. I entered the code. It clicked open. The door swung inward with a slow creak. The apartment was empty, completely bare. No furniture, no belongings, nothing. Just scarred hardwood floors and blank walls. The air was stale, suffocating. I walked to the center of the unit, standing in what I estimated was directly above my desk. The floor was covered in dust, just like the landlord said, except for one area. A path, swept clean, tracing a line across the room. 6 steps forward, 6 steps back. Over and over, the pattern worn into the dust like someone had walked it 1,000 times. My throat went dry. I followed the path to where it ended, above my bedroom. There, in the dust, was a rectangular outline, like something had been placed there, then removed. The shape was about 6 feet long, 2 feet wide. I left the apartment and locked it behind me. My hands shook as I put the padlock back in place. That night, the footsteps didn't come at 11 p.m. I sat in the silence, almost relieved, thinking maybe it was over. Then, at 11:47 p.m., I heard them. But this time, they weren't coming from above. They were coming from inside my apartment, heel toe, moving through my bedroom, down the hallway, stopping just outside my living room door. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The footsteps waited there, just beyond the doorway, for what felt like an eternity. Then they walked away, back down the hallway, into the bedroom. Silence. I spent that night in my car in the parking lot. The next morning, I gave my 30-day notice. My landlord didn't argue, didn't ask questions. He just nodded and said he'd start showing the unit next month. I moved out 3 weeks later. As I loaded the last box into my car, I saw someone standing in the window of Unit 404. Just a silhouette, motionless, watching me. I blinked, and it was gone. I live in Worcester now, a different building entirely. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear them. 6 steps forward, 6 steps back, and I know eventually they'll find where I am now. Because 2 weeks ago, I got a package, no return address. Inside was a single photograph, a Polaroid, yellowed and old. It showed the inside of Unit 404, the empty room, the dusty floor. And in the center of the frame, lying in that rectangular outline, was a body. I don't know whose face it was supposed to be. The photo was too degraded, too faded. But the posture was unmistakable. Arms at the sides, legs straight, perfectly still. The timestamp printed on the bottom read, October 23rd, 2 days before I first heard the footsteps. I keep the photo in a drawer now. I don't know why. Maybe because throwing it away feels worse than keeping it. Sometimes I take it out and stare at it, trying to convince myself it's a prank, a sick joke. But deep down, I know better. And every night at 11 p.m., I sit in the dark and wait, listening for the sound of footsteps that are always, inevitably getting closer. My name is Willa, and for 6 months, I worked the overnight shift at a subway station in Philadelphia. Claremont Station, specifically. A stop on the Blue Line that saw maybe 20 passengers between midnight and 6 a.m. The pay was decent, the work was mindless, and I needed the money for nursing school. The station was built in the 1930s. All tile mosaics and Art Deco fixtures that hadn't been updated in decades. During the day, it had a certain charm. At night, under flickering fluorescent lights, it felt like a mausoleum. My job was simple. Sit in the booth, sell tokens to the occasional passenger, watch the security monitors, and make sure no one died or vandalized anything. Most nights I studied. Sometimes I scrolled my phone. The hours passed slowly but predictably, until I noticed the man on Platform B. It was mid-February, around 2:30 a.m. The station was empty except for me. I was reviewing flashcards when I glanced at the security monitor for Platform B, the westbound side. There was a man standing near the far end, by the tunnel entrance. He wore a dark coat and stood perfectly still, facing the tracks. I watched him for a minute. He didn't move, didn't check his phone, didn't pace, didn't do anything. Just stood there. The next westbound train wasn't due for another 40 minutes. I switched cameras, checked Platform A, empty. Checked the entrance, empty. Switched back to Platform B. He was still there, same position. Something about his stillness bothered me. I'd seen plenty of weird behavior working overnight. Drunk people, high people, people having mental health crises. But this was different. This felt deliberate. At 3:10 a.m., a train pulled into Platform B. I watched the monitor. The doors opened and the man didn't move. Didn't even turn his head. The train sat there for 30 seconds. Then the doors closed and it pulled away. The man remained on the platform, staring at the tunnel. Now I was unsettled. I picked up the station phone and called Transit Police Dispatch. Hey, this is Willa at Claremont. I've got someone on Platform B acting strange. He's been standing in the same spot for over half an hour. Just missed a train. The dispatcher sounded bored. Is he threatening anyone? Causing a disturbance? No, but then monitor the situation and call back if his behavior escalates. She hung up. I stared at the monitor. The man hadn't moved. At 3:45 a.m., I decided to check on him myself. I left the booth, locked it behind me, and took the stairs down to Platform B. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and my footsteps echoed off the tile walls. When I reached the platform, I looked toward the far end. He was gone. I walked the length of the platform, checking behind pillars near the benches, even glancing into the tunnel entrance. Nobody. The platform was empty. I stood there for a moment, confused, then returned to the booth. When I checked the security footage, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The man hadn't left. He'd moved. In the 10 minutes I was away from the monitors, he'd walked from platform B, through the corridor, and was now standing on platform A, in the exact same position. Same posture, facing the tracks. I rewound the footage to see how he'd moved. I watched the timestamp tick forward, 3:47 a.m., 3:48, 3:49. At exactly 3:50, the camera feed flickered, just for a second. When it came back, he was already on platform A, as if he'd teleported. I felt cold. I called dispatch again. This time, I didn't wait for questions. I need an officer at Claremont Station, now. There's someone here and I don't feel safe. Ma'am? Can you describe the threat? I don't know how to explain it. He's just standing there. He's been here for over an hour. He won't move. Something's wrong. There was a pause. An officer will be there within 20 minutes. I watched the monitor. The man didn't move. I locked the booth door, even though the lock was flimsy, and waited. My hands were shaking. I kept glancing between the monitor and the station entrance, expecting him to appear at my door. At 4:08 a.m., the man turned his head, not toward the tracks, toward the camera. He stared directly into the lens, his face shadowed, expressionless. Then he raised one hand and pointed, not at the camera, at something behind it. At me. I stumbled back from the monitor, my heart pounding. When I looked again, he was gone. Both platforms were empty. I checked every camera. The corridors, the entrance, the stairwells, nothing. He'd vanished. I sat there, trying to rationalize it. Maybe he'd left while I was checking other feeds. Maybe the cameras had a blind spot. Maybe I was exhausted and imagining things. Then I heard it. A faint sound, rhythmic and metallic. Tap, 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 coming from somewhere below me. From the tracks. I didn't want to look. Every instinct told me to stay in the booth, wait for the officer, don't investigate. But the sound continued, steady and deliberate, and I couldn't ignore it. I unlocked the door and stepped onto the mezzanine, looking down at platform A. The man was on the tracks. He stood in the center of the westbound lane, facing the tunnel, tapping a metal rod against the rail. Tap, tap, tap. The sound echoed through the empty station. I shouted down to him, "Sir, you need to get off the tracks! There's a train coming." He didn't respond, didn't turn around, just kept tapping. I ran down to platform A, yelling at him to move, my voice shrill and panicked. The indicator lights flashed. A train was approaching. I could hear it in the distance, the low rumble growing louder. He kept tapping. "Get off the tracks!" I screamed. He stopped, lowered the rod. Then slowly he turned to face me. For the first time, I saw him clearly under the platform lights. He had no face, not disfigured, not masked. Just smooth, blank skin where his features should have been. No eyes, no mouth, nothing. My mind couldn't process it. I stood there, frozen, as the train roared into the station. I squeezed my eyes shut. The train's brakes screeched, and I felt the rush of air as it passed. When I opened my eyes, the train had stopped. The man was gone. The tracks were empty. The doors opened. A single passenger stepped off, a woman in a nurse's uniform. She glanced at me, gave a polite nod, and walked toward the exit. The train pulled away. I was alone on the platform, shaking, trying to understand what I'd just seen. The transit police officer arrived at 4:35 a.m. I told him everything. He checked the platforms, reviewed the footage, and found nothing unusual. "The cameras glitched," he said. "Happens all the time in these old stations, and there's no one on the tracks. You probably saw a homeless person who left before I got here." I didn't argue. I finished my shift, went home, and didn't sleep. I quit 2 days later. Told my supervisor I was done, effective immediately. She didn't ask why, but here's the thing. Last week, I was scrolling through a local history forum and found a thread about Claremont Station. Someone had posted a black and white photo from 1947, showing a group of construction workers standing on platform B. And in the background, barely visible, was a man in a dark coat, standing by the tunnel entrance, facing the tracks. I zoomed in on the photo. His face was blurred, like the camera had moved. But his posture was unmistakable. The same stillness, the same position. Someone had commented below the photo, "That's the guy who died during construction. Fell onto the tracks. They never found his face." I closed my laptop. I haven't gone back to that forum, and I don't take the blue line anymore. But sometimes, late at night, I hear it. That sound. Tap, tap, tap. And I know he's still down there, waiting on the tracks, tapping the rail, waiting for someone to join him. I'm Dylan, and I used to flip houses with my cousin in Omaha, Nebraska. Small-scale stuff. Buy a foreclosure, fix it up, sell it for a modest profit. We'd done maybe a dozen properties over 3 years, and it was working out well. Then we bought the house on Merrick Lane. It was listed at half its assessed value. 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, built in the 60s. The listing agent said the previous owner had died intestate, no family, and the estate was liquidating fast. We saw the photos online, dated but structurally sound. We put in an offer that afternoon and closed 2 weeks later. We started work on a Monday in April. The house smelled like dust and old carpet, but it was cleaner than most foreclosures we'd worked on. The layout was strange. Long hallways, oddly placed doors, rooms that felt too small or too large. My cousin Jared joked that it had bad feng shui. I just thought it was old. We divided the labor. Jared handled demolition and framing. I did electrical and painting. The first few days were uneventful. We ripped out carpet, tore down wallpaper, replaced outlets. Normal stuff. On Thursday, I was working in the master bedroom, removing baseboards, when I found the door. It was hidden behind a wardrobe we'd moved, an old wooden door, painted the same cream color as the walls, with no handle, just a smooth surface with faint seams outlining its edges. I called Jared over. "That's weird," he said, running his hand over it. "Why would someone cover up a door?" "Probably leads to a closet they walled off," I said. "Maybe structural issues." We decided to open it. Jared grabbed a crowbar, wedged it into the seam, and pried. The door resisted, then swung inward with a loud crack. Cold air rushed out, and we both stepped back. The smell hit us immediately. Damp earth and something sour like mildew. We shined our flashlights inside. It wasn't a closet. It was a staircase, leading down into darkness. "Is there a basement on the blueprints?" Jared asked. I pulled them up on my phone. No. The listing says slab foundation. No basement. We stared at the stairs. They were narrow, steep, and descended at least 15 feet. The walls were bare, concrete, and I could see moisture glistening on the steps. "We should check it out," Jared said. "Might be water damage or mold. Could tank the sale." I didn't want to go down there. Something about the cold air, the smell, the way the darkness seemed to swallow our flashlight beams. It all felt wrong, but Jared was already starting down, and I wasn't going to let him go alone. The stairs creaked under our weight. The temperature dropped with every step. At the bottom, we found ourselves in a small room, maybe 10 by 10 feet. The walls were concrete, the floor was dirt, and in the center of the room was a chair, an old wooden chair facing the stairs, and on the seat was a tape recorder. We stood there staring at it. "What the hell is this?" Jared whispered. I approached the chair slowly. The tape recorder was ancient, the kind with 2 reels and a chunky plastic shell. There was a tape inside. I picked it up, brushed off the dust, and looked at Jared. "Should we play it?" He shrugged. "Might explain why this room exists." I pressed play. The reels began to turn, and after a few seconds of static, a voice came through. A man's voice, calm and measured. "If you're hearing this, you found the room. I'm sorry. I didn't want anyone else to find it, but I couldn't seal it properly. Listen carefully. Do not stay down here longer than 5 minutes. Do not speak while you're down here, and whatever you do, do not turn around." The tape stopped. Jared and I looked at each other. "That's messed up," he said. "Someone's idea of a joke." "Yeah," I said, but my voice sounded hollow. We spent maybe 2 more minutes down there, checking the walls for cracks or water damage. We didn't find anything, just bare concrete and dirt. As we turned to leave, I felt it, a presence, like someone was standing behind me. I didn't turn around. I climbed the stairs as fast as I could, and Jared followed. Back in the bedroom, we shut the door and moved the wardrobe back in front of it. "We're sealing that," Jared said. "I don't care what's down there." We agreed. We'd drywall over the door, pretend it didn't exist, and finish the house. But that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the tape, the man's voice, the warning. The next morning, I went back alone. I told myself I just wanted to grab the tape recorder. Maybe it was valuable. Maybe it explained the house's history. I moved the wardrobe, opened the door, and descended the stairs. The room was exactly as we'd left it. The chair, the recorder. But now, there was something else. Scratched into the dirt floor, In large, uneven letters were 2 words: turn around. I ran. I didn't think, didn't look back, just bolted up the stairs and slammed the door behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely move the wardrobe back into place. I called Jared and told him we were done. Selling the house as is, taking the loss. He argued at first, but when I told him what I'd seen, he went quiet. "All right," he said finally. "Let's get out of there." We listed the house the next week. It sold in 3 days, cash offer, no inspection. The buyer was an older man, soft-spoken, who didn't ask many questions. As we handed over the keys, he looked at me and said, "The room? In the master bedroom. It's still there, isn't it?" I froze. "How do you know about that?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Because I used to live here, a long time ago. I'm the one who made the tape." I didn't know what to say. He took the keys and walked to his car. Before he drove away, he rolled down the window and called out, "You didn't turn around, did you?" I shook my head. "Good," he said. "That's good." He drove off, and I haven't been back to Merrick Lane since. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened if I'd turned around. And sometimes, I swear I can still feel it. That presence, standing, just behind me, waiting patiently for the moment I look back. My name is Monroe, and I'm a freelance graphic designer in Portland, Oregon. I work alone, mostly from coffee shops or my apartment, and I don't have a lot of close friends in the city. I moved here 2 years ago for a fresh start, and I've kept to myself ever since. In August, I got a message on Instagram from someone named Jillian Mays. The profile picture was a blurry photo of a sunset, and the account had maybe 30 followers. The message said, "Hey, I think we met at Powell's last month. You helped me find a book. Just wanted to say thanks." I didn't remember meeting anyone named Jillian, but Powell's is huge and I'm there a lot. Maybe I'd helped someone and forgotten. I replied, "No problem. Glad I could help." She responded immediately. "You recommended House of Leaves. I'm halfway through and it's amazing. We should grab coffee and talk about it." I hesitated. I didn't usually meet strangers from Instagram, but she seemed harmless. And I did love that book. I agreed to meet her at a cafe on Hawthorne the following Saturday. Saturday came, and I showed up 10 minutes early. I ordered a coffee and waited. Noon passed. Then 12:15, I texted her, "Hey, I'm here. Running late?" No response. By 12:30, I figured she'd flaked. I finished my coffee and left. That night, she messaged me again. "I'm so sorry. I totally lost track of time. Can we reschedule?" I should have said no, but I'd already cleared my afternoon, and something about her message felt genuine. We rescheduled for the next Wednesday. Same cafe. Wednesday came. I waited. She didn't show. I texted her, "This is the second time. What's going on?" She replied an hour later, "I'm really sorry, Monroe. I've been dealing with some personal stuff. I promise I'll explain if you give me one more chance." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We set a third date, Friday evening, a different cafe, closer to downtown. Friday evening, I sat at a corner table and waited. 6 p.m. passed, then 6:15. I was about to leave when my phone buzzed. A message from Jillian. "I'm outside. Can you come out? I'm having a panic attack and can't go inside." I walked outside. The street was busy, people everywhere, but I didn't see anyone who looked distressed. I texted, "Where are you?" "Across the street." Gray jacket. I looked across the street. There was a woman in a gray jacket standing under an awning, her back to me. I jaywalked over, dodging a bus, and approached her. "Jillian?" She didn't turn around. "Jillian?" I said again, louder. She turned slowly, but it wasn't a woman. It was a mannequin, propped against the wall, wearing a gray jacket. My stomach dropped. I looked around, confused, and pulled out my phone. A new message from Jillian. "Wrong person. I'm behind you." I spun around. The street was crowded, dozens of people walking past, but no one was paying attention to me. My phone buzzed again. "Just kidding. I'm not there. But you came outside for me. That's sweet." My hands were shaking. I typed back, "Who are you? What do you want?" 3 dots appeared, like she was typing. They stayed on the screen for a long time. Then, "I want you to understand what it's like. To wait, to expect someone and have them never show up. To feel like you're being watched but can't see who's watching." I blocked her immediately. I walked back to the cafe, grabbed my bag, and left. My heart was pounding, and I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see someone following me. That night, I went through her Instagram profile before I'd blocked her. I scrolled through her posts. Vague photos of Portland landmarks, captions that didn't make sense. And then I saw it. A photo posted 2 weeks ago. It was taken from across the street from my apartment building. The caption said, "Can't wait to meet you." I reported the account to Instagram and called a friend to come stay with me that night. I didn't sleep. Every sound in the hallway made me jump. The next morning I checked Instagram. Her account was gone, either deleted or removed. I thought it was over. But 3 days later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a printed message. "You blocked me on Instagram. That's okay. I know where you live. I know where you get coffee. I know where you work. I've been watching you for 6 months, Monroe, and I think it's time we finally met in person." Beneath the message was a photo. It was me, sitting in the cafe last Friday, waiting for Jillian. Taken from across the street, zoomed in on my face. I went to the police. I brought the letter, showed them the Instagram messages, explained everything. They took a report but said unless she made a direct threat or showed up in person, there wasn't much they could do. They advised me to stay vigilant, change my routines, maybe stay with a friend. I moved out of my apartment 2 weeks later. I'm staying with a friend in Beaverton now, and I've deleted all my social media. I don't go to the same coffee shops anymore. I don't walk the same routes. But last week I got another letter. Same handwriting. Same lack of return address. Inside was a single sentence. "I like your new apartment. The one with the blue door." My friend's apartment has a blue door. I don't know who Jillian is. I don't know what she wants or why she's doing this. But I know she's real. And I know she's still out there, watching, waiting for the right moment. And the worst part? I keep thinking about that first message. The one where she said we met at Powell's. Because the more I think about it, the more I remember a woman asking me for a book recommendation. I remember her smiling, thanking me, walking away. I remember her face, and I remember thinking just for a second that something about her smile didn't reach her eyes. I think I've known who she was all along. I just didn't want to believe it. I'm Sutton, and I work in customer service for a trail maintenance company in Asheville, North Carolina. It's a small operation. We handle repairs, signage, and safety reports for hiking trails in the Appalachian region. Most of my day is answering emails and routing work orders. It's boring, but it pays the bills. In late September, I got a voicemail that didn't make sense. It came through our emergency line, which is supposed to be for rangers or emergency services only. The message was garbled, full of static, but I could make out a few words. "Pinewood Trails. Something wrong. Don't send anyone." I replayed it 3 times. The voice sounded male, middle-aged, panicked, but the phrasing was strange. Don't send anyone? If something was wrong, why wouldn't he want help? I checked our database. Pinewood Trails was a moderately trafficked loop about 40 minutes outside Asheville. No recent work orders, no reported issues. I called the ranger station that oversees the area. The ranger, a woman named Pam, answered on the second ring. "Hey Pam, it's Sutton from Trail Maintenance. Did you guys call in an issue at Pinewood?" "No," she said. "Why? Is there a problem?" I got a weird voicemail. Someone said not to send anyone. Thought maybe it was one of your guys. Wasn't us. Could have been a prank. We get those sometimes. I thanked her and hung up. But something about the voicemail bothered me. I saved it and made a note in the system. 2 days later, I got another call. Same number. This time I answered. "Trail Maintenance, this is Sutton." Silence. Then static. Then a voice, faint and strained. "Why did you send them?" "Who is this?" I asked. "Send who?" "The crew." "You sent a crew to Pinewood." "Why? I didn't send anyone. We don't have any active work orders for Pinewood." More static. Then, "They're still here. They've been here for days. They keep walking the trail over and over. They won't leave." "Sir, I don't understand." "Who's still there?" "The crew, your crew. The ones you sent." "I didn't send anyone," I repeated. "Are you a hiker? Do you need help?" The line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone. I pulled up the work order database again, searched Pinewood Trails. Nothing. No crew had been sent there in over a year. I called Pam again. "This is going to sound crazy," I said. "But I just got another call about Pinewood. Someone saying there's a crew on the trail that won't leave." Pam sighed. "Look, I'll send someone out there tomorrow to check. But I'm telling you, no one's reported anything unusual." "Thanks. I appreciate it." The next afternoon, Pam called me back. "We checked Pinewood. It's empty. No crew, no hikers, nothing. Trail's in good shape. Whoever's calling you is messing with you." I wanted to believe her. But that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the calls. The panic in the man's voice. The static. I decided to drive out to Pinewood myself. It was a Saturday, and I had nothing else to do. The trailhead was deserted when I arrived around 3 p.m. There were 2 cars in the parking lot, both empty. I locked my car, grabbed my phone, and started up the trail. Pinewood is a 5-mile loop through dense forest. It's beautiful in the fall, red and gold leaves, quiet except for birdsong. I walked for about 20 minutes, taking in the scenery, checking for anything unusual. The trail was well maintained, no debris, no damage. Then I saw them. 4 people, maybe a quarter mile ahead, walking in single file. They wore identical orange vests, the kind our trail crews use. I called out to them, "Hey, you guys with trail maintenance?" They didn't respond, didn't turn around, just kept walking, steady and synchronized. I jogged to catch up. "Hey, can you hear me?" They kept walking. I got closer, maybe 50 feet away, and I realized something was off. They weren't talking, weren't carrying tools, just walking, their movements stiff and mechanical. "Excuse me," I shouted. One of them stopped, turned around. It was a man, maybe 40, with a blank expression. He stared at me, said nothing, then turned back and continued walking. I felt a chill run down my spine. I stopped jogging and watched them disappear around a bend. Something was very wrong. I pulled out my phone to call Pam, but I had no signal. I turned back toward the trailhead. That's when I heard it. Footsteps behind me. I spun around. The 4 people in orange vests were standing there, maybe 30 feet away, staring at me. They hadn't made a sound, but somehow they'd gotten behind me. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "What do you want?" They didn't answer. They just stood there motionless, their eyes locked on mine. I ran. I didn't look back, didn't stop, just sprinted down the trail as fast as I could. I could hear them behind me, footsteps, steady and relentless, matching my pace no matter how fast I ran. I reached the trailhead gasping for air. The parking lot was empty. Both cars were gone. My car was still there. But when I got closer, I saw something on the windshield. A note written in marker on a torn piece of paper. "We've been waiting." I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove out of there as fast as I could. I called Pam from the road, told her everything. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Sutton, we had a crew go missing at Pinewood. 3 years ago. 4 people. They went out for a routine maintenance job and never came back. We searched for weeks, never found them." My blood went cold. "Why didn't you tell me that before?" "Because it's not in the database anymore." The case was closed. Ruled as voluntary disappearance. They think the crew just walked off the job together. But I was here when it happened. I was part of the search. Her voice dropped. "We found their vests, all 4 of them, folded neatly on a rock near the 3-mile marker. No other trace." I pulled over on the side of the road. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. "What were their names?" She told me. I wrote them down. When I got home, I searched for them online. I found obituaries. All 4 crew members had died. But not 3 years ago. They died over a decade ago. Different causes, different years. 1 in a car accident. 1 from cancer. 2 from natural causes. They were dead before they ever went missing. I quit my job the next week. Didn't give a reason, just sent my resignation email and stopped showing up. My boss called a few times, but I didn't answer. I couldn't explain what I'd seen. I still can't. But here's what keeps me up at night. Last month, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Static. Then a voice I recognized. The panicked man from the first voicemail. "You came to the trail," he said. "You shouldn't have done that. Who are you?" I whispered. "I was a hiker. I was there the day the crew went missing. I saw what happened to them, and now I can't leave. None of us can leave. The trail won't let us." "What do you mean?" "We keep walking. Over and over. Every day. We can't stop. And now that you've seen us, you're part of it too. You'll understand soon." The line went dead. I haven't been back to Pinewood. I don't hike anymore. I barely leave my apartment. But sometimes, late at night, I feel it. The urge to walk. Just to get up and start moving, to follow a path I can't see but somehow know is there. And yesterday, I found something in my mailbox. An orange vest, folded neatly, with a note pinned to it. "Your shift starts soon." I don't know what that means, but I'm terrified that I'm going to find out. My name is Brennan, and I'm an archivist at a small historical society in Burlington, Vermont. I catalog old photographs, documents, and artifacts, mostly donations from estates or local families cleaning out attics. It's quiet work, detail-oriented, the kind of job where days blend together. Last March, we received a donation from a woman named Mrs. Carlisle. Her husband had passed away, and she was clearing out his study. He'd been an amateur photographer in the 70s and 80s, and she donated about 200 photos, mostly landscapes and street photography from around Burlington. I was assigned to catalog them. Most were unremarkable. Downtown storefronts, Lake Champlain at sunset, fallen leaves, that sort of thing. But about halfway through the box, I found something odd. It was a photo of a woman standing on a residential street, taken at dusk. She was maybe 30, wearing a blue coat, facing away from the camera. The photo was slightly out of focus, but what struck me was her posture. Rigid, unnatural, like she'd been caught mid-step and frozen. I flipped the photo over. Written on the back in pencil, October 14th, 1979. She's always there. I set it aside and continued cataloging. 10 photos later, I found another one. Same woman, same blue coat, same street. But this photo was taken from a different angle, maybe 50 feet away. On the back, October 21st, 1979, still there. By the time I finished the box, I'd found 12 photos of the same woman. Different dates, all between October and December 1979. Different angles, different times of day, but always the same street, always the same blue coat. And on the back of each photo, the same phrase, "She's always there," or "still there." The last photo was different. It was taken at night, the streetlights casting harsh shadows. The woman was closer to the camera, maybe 20 feet away. Her face was turned slightly toward the lens, but it was too dark to make out her features. On the back, December 30th, 1979. She's looking at me now. I felt a chill run down my spine. I pulled up a map of Burlington and tried to identify the street in the photos. It took some time, but I eventually found it. Maple Street, a quiet residential area on the north side of town. The houses looked the same as they did in the photos, just older. I should have left it alone. Filed the photos, finished the catalog, moved on. But I couldn't stop thinking about them. Who was this woman? Why was she always there? And why did the photographer seem so disturbed? I decided to visit Maple Street. It was a Saturday, mid-afternoon, and I told myself I was just curious. I parked at the end of the block and walked slowly, comparing the street to the photos. The houses matched. The layout was the same. I found the exact spot where most of the photos had been taken, in front of a pale yellow house with a wide front porch. I stood there for a few minutes, looking around. Nothing unusual, just a quiet suburban street. I took a photo with my phone, just for comparison, and turned to leave. That's when I saw her. A woman in a blue coat, standing at the far end of the block. She was facing away from me, perfectly still. My heart started pounding. I stared at her, trying to convince myself it was a coincidence. Lots of people wear blue coats. But her posture, that rigid, unnatural stillness, was identical to the photos. I called out to her, "Excuse me?" She didn't move. I started walking toward her, my pulse racing. As I got closer, I realized she was standing in the exact spot where she appeared in the first photo. I was maybe 30 feet away when she turned her head. Not her body, just her head, twisting at an angle that didn't look right. I froze. I couldn't see her face clearly, but I felt her looking at me. Then she turned back and walked away, disappearing around the corner. I ran to the corner, but when I got there, the street was empty. No woman, no blue coat, nothing. I stood there, breathing hard, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. I went back to the Historical Society Monday morning and pulled the photos again. I examined each one carefully, looking for details I'd missed. That's when I noticed something. In the background of one photo, barely visible in a second-floor window of the yellow house, was a figure, just a shadow, but it was watching the street. I enlarged the image on our scanner. The figure was clearer now. A man, middle-aged, standing at the window. His expression was blank, but his eyes were fixed on the woman in the blue coat. I felt sick. I searched the Historical Society's records for information about the photographer, Mr. Carlyle. I found an old newspaper article from January 1980. The headline read, "Local photographer found dead in home." The article was brief. Mr. Carlyle had been found in his house on Maple Street, the yellow house, by a neighbor. The cause of death was listed as heart failure, though the article noted police had investigated due to unusual circumstances. No further details were given. I checked the address. It was the same house from the photos. Mr. Carlyle had been photographing the woman from his own window. I called Mrs. Carlyle and asked if I could speak with her about her husband's work. She agreed, and I drove to her apartment that afternoon. She was in her 80s, frail but sharp. "Did your husband ever mention a woman in a blue coat?" I asked. "Someone on Maple Street?" Her face went pale. "How do you know about that?" "I found photos. He documented her over several months." Mrs. Carlyle closed her eyes. "He became obsessed. He said she appeared on the street every evening, always in the same spot, never moving. He started photographing her, trying to prove she was real. He thought he was losing his mind. Did he ever find out who she was? He did research. He found an old article about a woman who'd been killed on Maple Street in 1952, hit by a car while crossing the street. She died instantly. The article included a photo. She paused, her hands trembling. She was wearing a blue coat. I felt cold. Did he ever talk to her? Approach her? Mrs. Carlyle shook her head. He was too afraid. But the night before he died, he told me she'd started looking at him, that she knew he was watching. He said he felt like she was waiting for something. What happened the night he died? I don't know. I wasn't there. I was visiting my sister. When I came home the next morning, the police were already there. They said he'd been sitting at the window looking out at the street. Heart attack, they said. But his face... She trailed off, her voice breaking. He looked terrified. I thanked her and left. I didn't know what to do with the information. I thought about going to the police, but what would I say? That I'd seen a ghost? That a dead photographer had documented a dead woman for 3 months in 1979? I decided to let it go. I finished cataloging the photos, filed them in the archives, and tried to forget about it. But 2 weeks ago, I made a mistake. I was driving home from work, and, without thinking, I turned onto Maple Street. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted to see it one more time to prove to myself it was just a normal street. I drove slowly, scanning the sidewalks, and then I saw her. Same blue coat, same spot, same rigid posture. She was standing under a streetlight, facing the yellow house. I stopped the car. I don't know what compelled me to do it, but I got out and walked toward her. I called out, "Who are you? What do you want?" She turned her head, and this time, I saw her face. It wasn't decayed or monstrous. It was just empty. Her features were there, but there was no life behind them. No emotion. Just a blank, hollow stare. She opened her mouth, and I heard a voice. Not from her, but inside my head, like a whisper echoing in my skull. "You've been watching." I stumbled backward, my legs weak. I didn't mean, "Now I'm watching you." I ran back to my car, got in, and drove away as fast as I could. I haven't been back to Maple Street since, but every evening, just after dusk, I see her, standing outside my apartment, in the parking lot of the grocery store, at the end of my street, always in the blue coat, always watching. Last night, I found a photo slipped under my door. It was me, standing on Maple Street 2 weeks ago, taken from the window of the yellow house. On the back, written in pencil, "Now you're always there too." I don't know what that means, but I'm terrified that soon, someone else will find a box of photos. And in those photos, I'll be the one standing on the street, frozen in place, staring at nothing, waiting. I'm Tegan, and I'm a software developer from Austin, Texas. I work remotely, which means I can work from anywhere with decent Wi-Fi. Last July, I decided to rent a lake house for a month, someplace quiet where I could focus and recharge. I found a listing on a vacation rental site, a small cabin on Lake Livingston, about 90 minutes north of Houston. The photos looked perfect. Wooden deck, private dock, surrounded by pine trees. The owner, a guy named Rick, was responsive and friendly. He said the cabin had been in his family for years, but they rarely used it anymore. The price was surprisingly low, and I jumped on it. I arrived on a Thursday evening. The cabin was exactly as advertised, small but clean, with a cozy living room, a functional kitchen, and a bedroom overlooking the lake. The nearest neighbor was half a mile away. It was perfect. The first few days were uneventful. I worked during the day, took walks along the shore in the evening, and slept soundly. The isolation was exactly what I needed. On the fourth night, I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the front door. I sat up, disoriented, and listened. Silence. Then, 3 more knocks. I got out of bed and crept to the living room. The front door had a small window, and I peered through it. The deck was empty. No one was there. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages. I convinced myself it was an animal or a branch hitting the door, and went back to bed. The next night, it happened again. 3 a.m., 3 knocks. I checked the door. Nothing. This time I opened it and looked around. The deck was empty, the woods were silent. I stood there for a minute, the cool night air on my skin, then went back inside and locked the door. On the 6th night, the knocking came again, but this time, it wasn't on the front door. It was on the bedroom window. 3 slow knocks right next to my head. I bolted upright, my heart racing, and stared at the window. The curtains were drawn, but I could see a shadow through the thin fabric. Someone was standing outside, inches from the glass. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The shadow stayed there for what felt like an eternity, then slowly moved away. I heard footsteps on the deck, fading into the distance. I grabbed my phone and called Rick. It rang 4 times before he answered, his voice groggy. "Hello? Rick, it's Tegan. Someone's outside the cabin. They've been knocking on the door and windows for the past 3 nights. There was a long pause. Did you see them? No, just a shadow. But they were right outside my window tonight. Another pause. I'm sure it's just locals. Kids messing around. The cabin's pretty isolated, so sometimes people wander onto the property. Should I call the police? If it makes you feel safer, sure. But I really think it's nothing. Lock the doors and windows, keep your phone close. If it happens again, definitely call someone." I thanked him and hung up. I didn't call the police. I felt ridiculous, like I was overreacting. But I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in the living room with all the lights on, watching the windows. The knocking didn't come the next night, or the night after that. I started to relax, convincing myself Rick was right, just kids, or an animal, or my imagination. Then on the 10th night, I found the photos. I was cleaning the cabin, sweeping under the couch, when I saw something wedged between the cushions. A stack of Polaroids, maybe 20 of them, held together with a rubber band. I pulled them out and flipped through them. They were all photos of the cabin. Exterior shots taken at night. In each photo, the cabin windows were lit from inside, and I could see myself, sitting at the kitchen table, standing in the living room, lying in bed. Someone had been standing outside photographing me every night. My hands started shaking. I checked the timestamps printed on the bottom of each Polaroid. They were recent, within the past week. The most recent was from 2 nights ago. I called Rick immediately. "There are photos," I said, my voice shaking. "Someone's been taking photos of me. They're inside the cabin." "What? That's impossible. I cleaned the cabin myself before you arrived. I'm holding them right now. They're dated from this week. Someone's been watching me." Rick went quiet. "Then, get out of there. Right now. Pack your things and leave. I'll refund your money. Just go." "What's going on, Rick? Do you know who's doing this?" "Just leave, please." He hung up. I stared at my phone, then at the photos. I didn't pack. I didn't leave. I needed to understand what was happening. I went through the photos again, examining each one carefully. That's when I noticed it. In the background of one photo, reflected in the cabin window, was another figure. Not me, someone else, standing behind the person taking the photo. Watching them, I felt sick. Someone had been watching the person who was watching me. I grabbed my laptop and searched for information about the cabin. I found an old article from 15 years ago. Body found at Lake Livingston property. A woman named Jenna Voss had been found dead in a cabin matching this one's description. The article said her death was ruled accidental. She'd drowned in the lake. But there were suspicions of foul play. A suspect had been questioned but never charged. I kept searching. I found a forum post from 3 years ago, written by someone who'd rented the cabin. They described the same knocking, the same feeling of being watched. They'd left after 1 week and never went back. Another post, from 2 years ago, said the same thing. And another, from 18 months ago. Every single person mentioned the knocking. Some mentioned finding photos. Others just felt uneasy and left early. I was about to close my laptop when I noticed something. In the first article about Jenna Voss, there was a photo of the suspect, a man named Dale Hutchins. I enlarged the image. It was Rick, the cabin owner. My blood went cold. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. But when I opened it, someone was standing on the deck. A man, maybe 50, wearing a dark jacket. He was holding a Polaroid camera. "You shouldn't have stayed," he said quietly. I slammed the door and locked it. I ran to the bedroom, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. As I waited for the dispatcher to answer, I heard footsteps inside the cabin. Slow, deliberate footsteps coming down the hallway. But I was alone. I'd locked the door. There was no one else inside. The footsteps stopped outside the bedroom door. I pressed myself against the far wall, my phone clutched in my hand. The dispatcher's voice came through. 911, what's your emergency? Someone's in my house, I whispered. I'm at a cabin on Lake Livingston. Please send help. The bedroom door opened slowly. And standing there, silhouetted against the hallway light, was a woman. Soaking wet, her hair plastered to her face, her clothes dripping onto the floor. She looked at me with empty eyes and whispered, "He's been taking pictures of you." Just like he did to me, the line went dead. The woman stepped forward. I screamed and ran, shoving past her, out of the bedroom, through the living room, and out the front door. I got in my car and drove, not stopping until I reached the nearest gas station. The police went to the cabin later that night. They found the photos. They found evidence of someone living in the crawl space beneath the cabin. Blankets, food wrappers, and dozens more Polaroids of previous renters. But they didn't find anyone there. No man, no woman. Just an empty cabin. Rick was arrested 2 days later. He admitted to renting the cabin under false pretenses, knowing someone, Dale Hutchins, his brother, was using the property. But he claimed he didn't know Dale had been watching the renters, taking photos. The police are still investigating. But here's what I can't explain. The woman I saw that night, the soaking wet woman who whispered to me, I saw her face clearly. And when I searched online afterward, I found an article with her photo. It was Jenna Voss, the woman who drowned 15 years ago. I don't rent lake houses anymore. I don't take remote work trips. And I don't look at Polaroids without feeling a wave of nausea. Because sometimes, late at night, I hear it. 3 slow knocks. And I know somewhere someone is still watching.